So some of you may have been treated with testosterone cream or testosterone gel topical. Others of you may prefer the testosterone injections of various different frequencies. But could it be possible to convert or to combine both testosterone cream and testosterone injections? So what are the advantages? We're going to talk about it with a special guest after this, so keep watching. Hi, I'm Mike, the founder of Balance My Hormones, where we help men and women on their journey to optimal hormone balance. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and don't forget to watch until the end of the video, where we will be sharing with you comments that you've left on previous videos. So today we're here with one of our favorites, Dr. 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 Touliatos, good friend of mine, TRT expert, author of several books, including his new masterclass that he's offering about was a safe use of reducing harm with different anabolic or PEDs. So today we want to kind of focus on a topic. It was brought to us by one of our patients, clients, and friends who had seen a previous video out there in the TRT podcast world talking about they got a certain improvement by using both testosterone cream and injections. So, hey, Dr. George, good to see you. How are you today?
Hello, Michael. Good to see you. This is a topic that I have been facing, quite lately. So there was another case, one of my patients, that he wants to combine both. So basically my explanation is the following. Now, we know that creams have a very short half-life. They have to be applied on a daily basis, and this provides the benefit of stable levels, therefore avoiding fluctuations. Okay, it's like basically injecting daily. The point is, injections have a further half-life rather than the short half-life of the creams. Therefore, if it's too much obligation for you and nerve-wracking to do this every day you wake up on a standard basis of 24 hours, then you should inject twice a week. The point is that the pharmacokinetics of the injection are different. So it's basically a vehicle that travels slower, like a boat or like a train, unlike the car that goes faster, like the cream, for instance. Therefore, you have to you need to have a standard velocity and a certain speed. Now, the only way I can find reasonable and justify the use of cream on top of the injection is occasionally, if somebody is, for instance, a bachelor, wants to have an extra boost, an extra kick in his sex drive, and perhaps his 100, 150 or 200 milligrams of testosterone are not enough on a weekly basis in order to satisfy his lover or her lover, then he could apply that the day before the day of intercourse, some extra cream. Otherwise, I find it no point mixing together. Even the same compounds that have different half-lives. So I tell them choose either the one or the other and go this all the way.
Could it be that just someone's not quite dialed in, and the benefit they're getting from the testosterone cream, especially if it's applied scrotally, could that not be the DHT conversion improving their symptoms?
Then why don't you try DHT itself, which is really expensive but identical. We have a reliable source and it's the real deal, okay? And it's much better than Misterolin, which is synthetic DHT, resembling, okay, the DHT compound. So it's correct, yes.
So for everyone watching, I think in Europe, in particular, DHT through Balance My Hormones, when it's medically needed, can be prescribed and can be delivered to patients in Europe. I wonder if it's in the United States, it's a bit more restrictive and more difficult to obtain DHT cream. And so perhaps some of those in the US are talking about using a roundabout way to enhance DHT via the scrotal cream. But you're right, it complicates things, doesn't it?
Yes. So DHT is way more beneficial in order as a libido enhancer because a portion of testosterone is reduced to DHT. And in case somebody is using anti-androgens for the sake of male pattern baldness or hair thinning or even BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia, then much of the DHT is not produced. But anyway, I believe that it's a good combination testosterone injection or testosterone cream plus DHT cream, rather than mixing both together testosterone in a cream form but also in injectable form.
I mean, there's some men who add HCG or HMG to their testosterone treatment, and in years past it was considered a bit taboo, odd. I'm talking like 20 years ago, right? It was like driving with your handbrake on whilst you're putting the foot on the accelerator by doing both. Now I'm wondering, is this something somehow to make up for perceived declining levels towards the end of an injection for those who dose less frequently?
Yes, I mean, this is something that Dr. Justice Saya in Florida pointed out 5 years ago, that in case you have a bi-weekly protocol of testosterone, or a weekly protocol of testosterone according to the half-life, when it clears the system and you have the trough levels, then the day before use HCG in order to boost your endogenous levels. But I'm using the Chrysalis protocol and microdosing of HCG along with testosterone the same days. Even though I may not want to be a father anymore, I find it particularly interesting and beneficial for the overall steroidogenesis because injecting testosterone will cut off all the cascade of these steroids. So also Nelson Virgil supports that using HCG will make you better pregnenolone, progesterone, DHEA. And also you have a libido enhancer because you have intratesticular testosterone, better ejaculation volume, your balls are bigger, so this gives you a better self-esteem. All right, if you can afford it, go for it. We have discussed this with Nelson again.
The issue in some parts, especially in Europe with the pharmacies and in the United States, is the difficulty of getting HCG and transporting HCG in a convenient way. So
Yes, usually before the mixing of the powder with the solvent, it's safe. As soon as you mix it, it has to be refrigerated.
yeah, and most of the solvents are sterile saline, not bacteriostatic.
For instance, now in Greece, we have a compound, a generic product called Ovitrel, which is not really convenient to be used in microdosing because it's filled up, pre-filled up syringe to be a single dose for women that want to get pregnant, okay? So you cannot break it down. So I'm ordering from Italy the Gonasi, that it can be broken down, and it comes as raw powder plus the solvent, so there's no problem with the heat as long as it's not pre-mixed yet.
Of course, and in the UK we also import Ganassi for our UK patients, and we may have it soon for our European patients as well. So just want to let them know. So all right, well, on this topic, it sounds like, in some cases, and we've seen some of our other doctors prescribe both doses, normally for people who are doing work offshore. So if they're going offshore, the thought is the health and safety people don't want them bringing injections, needles, and supplies on the rig. So what they'll end up doing is asking to have the cream for the time when they're going offshore, and then using the injections when they're back home, because they'll work on shifts like 3 or 4 weeks on the mainland, and then the rest of the time or a few weeks offshore. So we've seen it before with some of our doctors and requests from our patients. And I've used the cream in the past, and I suppose if I had to use it towards the end of my injection, or if I didn't want to do an injection for the day, I might have a bit of testosterone cream. But I think for most people, it kind of can really throw off the balance and the logistics of getting your readings for your trough levels. Yeah, and then also if you are used to having, not that we promote finger prick testing, but something that's available for people who have a difficult time getting their blood tests, then I suppose you'd have to always have a venipuncture test done, because you'd have levels that would be skewed from doing a capillary or finger prick test. Any other thoughts that you can think of, benefits of doing both?
Say about the HMG that it's really beneficial to enhance further the spermatogenesis along with HCG that actually kicks the Sertoli cells, not the Leydig. So HCG indirectly matures the sperm through the elevation of endogenous testosterone, rather than the HMG that's the real deal that improves, as synthetic FSH, the sperm quality. And I had some success with some bodybuilders, with few bodybuilders that wanted to fertilize their wives. Anyway, but of course, it's much more expensive.
I was just going to say, anything else you can think of that's a positive about using the cream?
But I've used the cream when I was about to have sex, so I knew I wasn't going to have sex at night. So in the beginning, perhaps a few hours before I apply in my scrotum some testosterone cream, or in the beginning of the day, I would rub testosterone in my wrist and forearms to have some extra testosterone levels that particular day.
Kind of Dr. T's thoughts on, using testosterone cream along with your testosterone injections. Sounds like it makes it a bit more complicated. There may be a few times that it might be appropriate.
I think it's overkill. Okay, you should choose one pathway all the way according to, to your lifestyle, because people cannot pin themselves. Other people cannot open up, the fridge and take the cream on a daily basis. So it's up to your needs and how you can adjust to this.
So we have a question here from one of our viewers that come to the channel. And this is from Adam. About 2 weeks ago, he sent this in. He said, this has always bothered me about modern medicine and some doctors' beliefs. He said he had his testosterone checked and it was below normal. He didn't have the symptoms of it, but yeah, it was a low number. He said when he asked two of his cardiologists or cardios from one was the Mayo Clinic, they both gave the same answer, as that testosterone replacement is controversial and certainly has side effects. He goes on to say, I haven't tested since, but why can't the medical community get on the same page? I've read the studies and now seems like it might be bad, but where does this disagreement come from? So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. That's
there's the standard myth of the two main fears of the cardiovascular disease and the prostatic cancer. We have explained this very thoroughly, that low testosterone is linked to both of the diseases. Prostate cancer, Mogetala says that is happening to men with low testosterone because of the excess estrogen that can play a role in the proliferation of the cells in the prostatic gland out of the visceral fat, gynecomastia, blah, blah, blah. And also low testosterone contributes to visceral fat, dyslipidemia, insulin resistance, diabetes, metabolic syndrome, and no nitric oxide production that vasodilates the coronaries. Okay? We're talking about optimization of the hormones. Certainly not using testosterone, okay?
We had a cardiologist on our channel before, and I'll put the link above. We discussed the issues around this myth around testosterone causing negative cardiovascular disease. Well,
people had a heart attack while on testosterone doesn't mean that they would not have a heart attack without the testosterone, okay? And it's not about to blame testosterone if you have predisposition for heart disease, if your lipids are bad, if you're not following good diet or exercise, or if you smoke or whatever, okay? So it's just coincidence, because just because you're using testosterone, you had a heart attack, it's been linked to testosterone, okay? How many people have heart attack without testosterone, for Christ's sake?
I agree. And you know what? Dr. Gupta was also in agreement. He's a cardiologist. He's got a channel and he's a support of testosterone for positive cardiovascular health. So definitely in agreement.
I'm telling you, I had a patient, a heart surgeon from Harvard. Okay, we graduated from Athens College, big name, all right, 60 years old. He had a heart attack because of low testosterone. He came to me to give him testosterone transdermal, of course, he doesn't want a peen, to optimize his cardiovascular health, that's all. And this was 2 years ago, all right?
So perhaps it's changing, and this chap. Yeah, it's old news. I think more and more doctors in the mainstream are coming around to the benefits of TRT.
And now bodybuilders is the #1 abuse of androgens, and we barely have prostate cancer in bodybuilders. But of course, bodybuilders abuse steroids as well. Now testosterone, there was only one study in the beginning that was linked. When this subject was castrated, there was a regress in the prostate cancer, but there was only one study. Morgenthaler said that. Okay?
Yeah, of course. And there's only 2 people in the study as well, and they weren't even looking at PSA.
Also, yes. I had an interview with Colin Orr this week, and he said that the way they treat prostate cancer with testosterone is that giving an overdose of testosterone, let's say 500 milligrams, they saturate the receptors, and then there's no other place for the androgen, no other space for the androgen receptor to receive testosterone, and then they leave the compound to clear the system, and then the receptors open up again, searching for androgens, So the key point is to saturate the receptors so that they cannot further absorb and assimilate testosterone. But this is an extreme case, all right? Morgenthaler believes that after a certain amount of testosterone, there's no problem then with the prostate because there's no utilization of the androgen from the gland, from the receptor, the androgen receptor.
No, and I think that's becoming more mainstream. And I know Morgenthaler wrote a book.
And also her talk says, initially in BPH, when you start giving the androgens, you diminish the PSA and the size of the gland. However, after 6 months, because when you cut off DHT, E2 elevates, then there is a regression again in the size of the gland because of the estrogens. That's why we are telling that everything has to be under control. And Morgenthaler agreed on that it's about balance of all the hormones. Okay?
All right, so I think we answered the chap's question, and if you have further comments that you'd like to leave, we're going to be answering them at the end of our videos, and with either Dr. George or one of our other TRT experts that we have on the channel. If you like the videos and the content, please feel free to subscribe and hit the like button, and we will have more coming very soon. So thanks, Dr. George, and we'll see you next time. If you liked this video, you may want to consider watching some of our other videos on the topic of TRT.